Peace and love, wonderful family. Welcome to the Today in Africa show on blackhotfire network. My name is Pikes, alongside my wonderful co-host. Her name is Kami. And today we shall be talking about different matters on the African continent. Remember, this is a show we get to discuss trending and topical issues across the continent and give you an update on what is happening in different countries on the continent of Africa. Today we shall be talking about a bit of Somalia. There has been some attacks against the insurgents, the Somali insurgents by the name Al-Shabaab. These are Islamic militants. And we shall also be talking about another different country, which is Nigeria. A big shout out to the people of Nigeria, because Nigeria is simply celebrating its Independence Day today. And I shall be letting you know about the milestones and achievements that have been made by the people of Nigeria since the 1st of October, the year 1960, when they received their independence from Somali. So I want to welcome my co-host here, Kami. Karibu.
Finally, I've been waiting for that great moment. Welcome to, of course, this is me and Spike, and we are super thrilled, of course, to brief you on what is happening in Africa. So, Spikes, take the wheel.
I need to start off with the independence of Nigeria. Someone has just shared with me earlier a video about that was Dr. Mombi talking about how African countries are not really independent, and I believe they are not really independent because, for example, if we talk about the military presence, for example, in Kenya we have the British military still here. In Nanyuki we have, in other countries like Eritrea we have military bases of Russians, Americans, the British and the French. They are all over the continent. So how can we talk about independence where we still there's a lot of control, there's a lot of meddling with the African affairs? You see, like for example in Nigeria, they are celebrating what we're calling right now the Independence Day that was in 1960 in October. But do you think these countries are totally free?
Okay, my view on that is that we are still not free. Take a look at just to what Spikes has said regarding that we still have the white man's influence here in Africa. And I believe that the word independence was managed two people. That is the leader. And when I'm talking about the leader, I am talking about the chief of that area back then, because they had an agreement. And you know, when an agreement is taking place between two people, we, the outer society, we really don't know what went down. So we are out there in the street claiming that we are independent, free from the white man's oppression, but still no, we are still there. Take a look at how our people are going out in these European nations, and the way they are still subjected to brutality. So we are still not independent. I
think when people say about independence and freedom, that is just an ideology, it's just an illusion. People will tell you that you're free and that you can run your own affairs, because I believe even after the European left, you still have his influence on the country. For example, in terms of land, there's a lot of land on the continent that is being used for the purposes. For example, if you look at the Delamayers, who were using the farm to do their business. If you look at, for example, the Del Monte, you have a company owning lots and lots of acres of land, and they're trying to run their businesses and agriculture projects on this particular land. And even in South Africa, you can see, even though they got their independence, supposedly independence in quotes, in a country where you have Nelson Mandela taking over power from that is J.W. Clark in South Africa, I believe we still have a long way to go before we can claim independence. Because right now, when you want to do projects, for example, we still have to go to the World Bank and ask for their money. We still have to go and talk to all these other different foreign powers that be, so that we can ask for them for assistance. And I believe as a continent, there is a lot of milestones that we still have to cover before we can consider ourselves as completely independent. And also there's a notion that one of the people that I've been speaking to, a friend of mine, he says that there still has to be that confrontation, because not many people want to have the confrontation, because for you to be free, freedom is not for free. There's one thing people need to understand, that freedom never comes for free. Anyhow, I want to talk about something else that has to do with the people of Tanzania. The Tanzanian people have been very, very active in terms of emancipating themselves. They have been emancipating themselves from poverty, emancipating themselves from miseducation, because the country has been led by a very, very wise gentleman. He goes by the name Magufuli. I don't know what your thoughts are about Magufuli.
Of course, my thoughts are definitely negative. I don't have any positive thoughts about any other African leader, because we take a look at, you know, as a common, let me just use the word a common wananchi. You go to the line, you vote for this person, believing that change will come. But change is not coming. If anything, Magufuli has made Tanzania to be his own, let me just call it school. You know, whereby in school you have that tough prefect that you really respect. You can't say
women, you're
nothing.
telling women to be a children. I believe you're telling women to be a more children. That is not being a prefect.
No, it's okay. As much as you know, there is a different depending on whom you believe in.
Yeah.
Whereby for those who are Christians, they believe that God created human beings to procreate. That is the role of the ladies, to procreate and fill the world. And I've just said that it depends with whom you believe in. But for Magufuli, it's not his role, because he is a leader. His role as a leader is to lead the people, is to change Tanzania in a more economic way. So if you tell me that he's telling people to ladies to produce more children, take a look at Africa, take a look at Nigeria. They have, it's overpopulated, and that's why we're having hunger issues on a daily basis.
But I believe we need to have more people, because if you have a country with more people, you're able to have more people to employ, and a lot more labor. You have more people to work for your country to bring it to the next level, perhaps.
I'm still on the line that. Take a look at Kenya. Take a look at Kenya. We have a lot of graduates out here. That is let me give an example. If our own president told women to go out and produce more kids, then we'll be having now more tags on a daily basis, because we have a lot of graduates out there who are still jobless. So for that move for Magufuli, I'm not supporting that.
That's debatable. I believe that's debatable. Depends on where you're coming from. What other updates do you have for us?
As for me, I'll take you all the way to Rwanda. Rwanda remains to be a very unique African country, bearing in mind that back then it faced a genocide issue, and for an African country to face a genocide issue, then you know, the world out there will think that it will be a country that is full of poverty-stricken people and so on, but that's not the case with Rwanda. And just to tell you that the Rwanda Development Board has taken a step to liaise with the Africa 50, and Africa 50 is just a Pan-African infrastructure development platform that ensures that it will take Rwanda to the next step. You know, in Africa, we need to grow economically. We don't need to depend on foreign aid, and that is a great move that Rwanda has taken. What is your thought on that?
I think Rwanda, they're trying in terms of infrastructure. One of the things we need to understand is that we are lagging behind, especially as a continent, when it comes to innovation. Or especially when it comes to technology, and also the infrastructure. We need to set up railway networks, we need to set up road networks, we need to set up all these other kinds of infrastructure that we will need to get us the next level. And if Rwanda right now is partnering with another organization that is dealing and fostering that particular goal, I believe that is the right way to go. And I also want to commend the people of Rwanda, because most of their investment, I think it's the president right there, Mr. Paul Kagame, I think his focus is on the right place. Unlike other African leaders where you find the priorities are misplaced, they would rather just go and focus on other things and prioritize on other things. I believe infrastructure is one of the things that we should start along with, and I believe that's a good move. And also moving from Rwanda, I want to talk about the next country. We do have the neighboring country, which is Uganda, and there has been a ban on wearing of some red berets. We call them the red berets because these are the caps that have been used by the opposition leader, Mr. Bobi Wine. And I remember sometimes back he was being taken to prison because of his involvement, and he's trying to emancipate the people from the rule of Museveni. And do you think this will stop the revolution in Uganda, stopping the people from wearing the berets?
First of all, Museveni has come up with many rules in Uganda right now. I'm even wondering if the Ugandans will cope up with that. But my thought on that, Museveni has no right to tell the people not to wear what they want to wear. Because if I am in support of a certain leader, and because I've taken a look at his manifesto, because I believe that that leader will change Uganda, then I have every right to dress to the way that will make that leader know that he has supporters out there.
And also, the elections are not very, very far away. I think we'll have another situation like we had with Besigye. That is the opposition leader that was being arrested even on the days to the elections.
Exactly.
I don't know if he was able to go and cast his vote. but I believe that is very, very serious. And I'm moving on from that. I won't take us from East Africa to West Africa. We have the country by the name Cameroon, and Cameroon has been struggling with the issue of the English-speaking versus the French-speaking people. You have the Anglophones and the Francophones. The people fighting because they believe that they are different people, and they believe that the British-speaking are the English-speaking people that were colonized. That particular part that was colonized by the British people, they believe that these particular people are getting better kind of opportunities. But right now, there has been a move by the government to try and have a reconciliation, to try and have a dialogue. And I believe bringing people together is the right way to go, because if you have all these kinds of divides, these divides only serve the interest of the white man. They only serve the interest of the Europeans. Will have the people fighting and then come in and loot a lot of resources from this African country.
True. And
I don't know what you might say about that.
Thank you so much for that. Let me you just brought it out the right way. The more the African people are going to fight, they are making the white man, have more, that the white man can now be able to access the resources in Africa. They say that when the white man first came in Africa, he had to introduce certain rules that the black man will follow. And these rules will definitely jail, let me use the word jail in quotes, the black man. So these people, they need to come together and get to work against the white man, because you cannot say that you are fighting against the French speaking, against the English speaking. At the end of the day, you were born with your own native language,
and you
so
are
you
African.
And you are African. That is one thing. So you need to appreciate yourself and come to a conclusion on a 50-50 on the things that will benefit the both of you. That is my thought on that. And
I also believe that perhaps we should also look at the issue of the kind of interference, because when you have these two functions fighting, for example, the British speaking and also the French speaking people, sometimes you find that there has been some form of support. For example, in the French speaking people, the French speaking region, you might find the French might even try and support these particular people and give them arms to go and try and fight these English speaking. For example, in Rwanda, we remember in Rwanda, when you had a trip to go to Rwanda, we got to find out that the French was heavily involved in that particular fight, that genocide in that particular place. But once again, let's move on from that. I want to talk about something different, which is in Zambia. But before that, you can simply update us on something else.
Let me take you all the way to South Africa. Africa at large, we are battling issues with our environment. And just to remind you is that Kenya itself even took the initiative to do away with polythene papers, that is the plastic bags. But, I was just amazed with this teenager in South Africa. She invented the Eat Me straws in quotes. And, I'm just so happy and super thrilled at the fact that young minds right now, you cannot compare the education system that we went through back then, the things that we were able to do, and the things versus the thing that these teenagers are able to do. So she invented the Eat Me straws. And just to take you a little bit is that the other straws, they had certain chemicals that will affect the human being and will also affect the environment. But the Eat Me straws, after drinking a sip or anything, you are able to even eat those straws. It's just like when ice cream is served and
so
you're still able to eat that cone.
That's nice. I believe they should even invent some plates that you can eat after the meal. That would be very, very nice.
Exactly.
So simply enjoy your meal, and then after that you can eat the plate.
The plate,
and
exactly.
The spoon if it's possible.
Yeah, but with the way that Africa right now, a lot of African governments have realized that technology and the different inventions are taking African countries far, and that is definitely the right direction to take. We need to save our environment as much as we can, because when you get to expose or dispose some of these plastic substances, let me just use an example of the marine. They are affecting the ocean. That's why we are having some animals in the sea becoming extinct because of this plastic disposal in the ocean.
Okay, that's very, very true. I agree that we need to focus on environment, because tomorrow's generation is dependent on what we do today in terms of the environment. And now moving on from that, we want to go to another different story, which happens to come from Madagascar. We have talked about the stealing of the crop in Madagascar, and because this is a crop, this is vanilla, the stealing of vanilla in Madagascar. And one thing happens to surprise me the most, because children right now have been involved in this particular theft, and there are some children that are waiting to be taken to for their trial because of this involvement. I believe this is a child, what do you call the juvenile? This kid will be sent to the juvenile because of involvement in stealing vanilla. And I believe someone might have put them to this challenge, perhaps their parents, or perhaps their guardians. And you know, this is a practice that has been happening for a very, very long time. The stealing of vanilla in this particular place is not a new thing. Some people have even bought guns to protect their vanilla crop. And also, even in Kenya, we have a situation where people are stealing coffee from factories. And this kind of theft for crops is because of poverty, first and foremost. A lot of people are stricken in poverty, and they need some way to find some money to get by, and they find that they can go and steal the crop and sell it, and perhaps make some income or some money from this particular thing. I don't know what you view on this.
Okay, first of all, I'm just sad at the thought that these kids are going to, you know, spend quite some time in juvenile, because a farmer is never a happy person when it comes, you know, the hard work that they have put till the vanilla is now ready for the market. But my thought on that, instead of rushing, you know, and sending these kids to juvenile, they need, you know, to at least there's that way back then in Tanzania, the Tanganyika, okay, let me just call it Tanganyika, that when you mess, you are brought to the society and heavily caned. I think caning them heavily, just as a reminder. Some parts, you know, there's some parts when your mom, when she beats you there, you know, it's serious. Instead of sending them to juvenile. And also, of course, poverty is an issue. Take a look even at the mango farms. The mango farms here in Africa. We have kids going there to steal, and they'll go and sell them in the market. But sending them to jail is just like ending their dreams. And I'm not for the support of juvenile, as much as we have kids who have been born with a criminal mindset already. But you need to, you know, take them lightly through that and beat them at certain parts of the body whereby they'll know that this is really not. I don't know why you say certain parts of the body. No, there's certain parts of the body when your mama infringe some pain, you know, this is extreme.
Just with the ass. These kids needs to be taught a lesson. It will not wait for someone's crop to grow, then go harvest it on them, they go steal it. Now moving on from that, we want to talk about one more thing, which is Somalia. There has been the insecurity issue since the Al-Shabaab militants, Islamic militants, have been very, very actively involved in bombing and a lot of terrorist activities in that particular country. And one that we need to realize is that these particular people have their sources of funding. You cannot actually think that these people get their guns, get their funding from just anywhere. There has to be a direct source of funding that is coming to give them money and fund these particular activities, criminal activities and terrorist activities in Tanzania. In Somalia. And one thing that we need to realize is that we need to come together as African governments, as the people of Africa. We need to strike back and get rid of these militants. And recently there has been an attack against these militants by the US. There has been a US airstrike against one of these particular targets that houses the Al-Shabaab militants. And right now, Amnesty International has come out and said that this particular attack that was launched against these militants actually did not get the correct target. It actually hit and struck the farmers in Somalia. And right now, the Amnesty International, which is a human rights organization, is very, very vocal regarding how these particular people have been affected in Somalia. I don't know if they got the wrong intelligence. I have no idea whether the intelligence was incorrect or what was happening with this particular one. But I believe we have to have joint efforts. For example, the African Union put together the AMISOM, and the AMISOM was involved in trying to get back these particular regions that have been taken over by the Islamic militants. And I also believe that this is a very, very good move when people are working together. But also, let us get the correct intelligence. We do not want to attack farmers. We don't want to attack other families and other communities in the pretext of attacking militants. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Okay, as much as I would want some aid, I'm just not saying whether foreign or local, but as much as I want some aid to do away with these militants, because take a look at Somalia right now. It's very much unstable. You cannot go there and invest in Somalia. But they need to really do their homework. They really need to do their research very well, because you don't want to injure innocent farmers who are out there, you know, trying to look for a livelihood for their families. So to the US, I'll say that you know, we believe that the US has a much intel, the US has the best drones and so on. Then they really need to research their homework before they release, before they get to release, you know, their drones on innocent people.
That's a very, very good point. I believe intelligence has to be correct, because you cannot just go and attack the people of Somalia in the pretext of attacking their Al-Shabaab militants. Once again, remember, this has been the Today in Africa show. We'll get talk about different issues on the continent. I just give you an update on what is happening from East Africa to West Africa to the South of Africa to the North of Africa, and we're glad that you tuned in. Remember, we're interactive on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on Instagram as well, and YouTube. You can hit us up and give us your feedback. Once again, I have been your host for the show, Spikes, alongside Kami.
I am your host, of course, Kami.
And now, what's your parting shot as we end this particular episode?
As for me, Africa needs to rise. Africa, we don't need to be dependent of foreign aid. We have the right resources that they are looking for.
We have everything.
We have everything. So Africa, you really need to open your eyes. And corruption, of course, is one thing that is definitely bringing us down, and that's lead to the waste of resources.
That is very, very correct and on point. You couldn't have said it any better. And I believe as we end this particular show, we shall end it with one particular jam. It's called All I Need. It's by a gentleman called Steve. All I need is right here in Africa. And this is a particular jam. Once again, till next time, kwaheri, goodbye.